Swim Things in Blue Springs, your one-stop shop for all things swim. Pools, spas, patio furniture, swimwear, and accessories. Visit them in Blue Springs or at www.swimthings.com.
Just that raw emotion and pride. And I never took for granted putting the stars and stripes on my back and what was expected of me, what I was representing. And it was just a great honor.
Hi, everybody. Today on the show, we are very fortunate to have one of the best American sprinters in history. David Fox's journey to becoming an Olympian took a lot of twists and turns and includes a family tragedy and a lot of hard work to become a history-making collegiate swimmer. And we're excited to have him here now. Welcome, David, to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Well, good. Thank you for being here. So when you look back on all the things that you've achieved in swimming, what stands out to you the most?
I mean, I think a lot of people would say this, now at 49, really looking back, the relationships, the relationships, even the hardships, the things that you've had to push through and overcome. And, the successes and the failures kind of dull over time, but the traumatic things that you push through and recognizing where you went after facing those obstacles, and also just the people that you stayed connected to over long periods of time. Those are the things for me. If you'd asked me 20 years ago, I might have mentioned a race or a competition, but with time, I think breeds wisdom.
Well, I think it's also, it's something that a lot of people say is, at the end of the day, times don't really matter, and that's not what people really remember about you. You remember certain other little things. You may remember a certain meet, but you remember more what you did outside the pool.
That's right.
So when you look back on your time as an Olympian at the 1996 Olympics, what stands out to you the most?
Wow. Well, being in front of our home crowd and being close to home, Atlanta is a drivable distance from North Carolina. So I had a lot of friends and family there. And I think it was just it was the only time in my swimming career where I felt like the occasion was just really big. And it certainly would have been nice to have snuck in there on a relay or something in 92 and get to experience an Olympic Games before going back 4 years later. But you deal with the circumstances in front. So it was a big monumental event. We have, as we do every 4 years, the U.S. team had high expectations. I had high expectations of myself. I met some of them, didn't meet others, and you just swim your meet and move forward. But I really enjoyed the experience. I mean, things like meeting Muhammad Ali, or the president doing a surprise drop-in to meet some of the swimmers after one of the sessions. And those little things kind of stick with you over time to make you really appreciate the experience.
It's amazing that you got to pretty much compete in your own backyard. How much more special was that for you to get to compete at a home Olympics?
I wouldn't, it's amazing how many people asked if I was disappointed that I didn't get to travel or go to some, historic international venue. And, the only thing that could have been better than it being in Atlanta would have been if they had it in Raleigh, where I grew up. But it was really special. Again, lots of friends and family made the trip that otherwise probably wouldn't have.
Right. And even getting just the chance to compete at the Olympics, giving you some of the obstacles that you kind of overcame was amazing. And you were one of the fastest sprinters in the country as a high school swimmer in North Carolina. How did you discover competitive swimming?
What a lot of people outside of the state don't know, maybe they know more now with some of the success that the college programs in the area are having, but there's a huge swimming culture in North Carolina. And it really starts, like in Raleigh, every neighborhood has a summer league program, and every kid feeds into those summer leagues. And so the number of kids swimming competitively at that level is massive there. And then all of the club teams recruit from those summer league programs. And so you see quite a number of large successful club programs. And then you throw in the fact that Duke and State and Carolina are right there. You've got college coaches that are college swimmers that are sticking around and helping coach. And so you've got a pretty high level of coaching available at a young age. And I certainly was a beneficiary of that.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, as I live in a community where there are plenty of summer league swim teams all over, and I've been on one since I was 4 years old. So, and I am now going to be able to coach next year all the little kids that I used to once be. So I can definitely relate to that on some sort of level. But I understand that you have or had a 1 inch difference height in your legs. How did you kind of learn about that and how to cope with that with swimming?
Yes, it's 3/8 of an inch. And I didn't learn about it until 5 or 6 years ago, but I started having low back and shoulder issues in college, and they never went away. I thought they were things that I just had to grind through and they would go away when I stopped swimming, and they never did. And they could never find out what was wrong with me. I had countless MRIs and issues. And so you just learn to adapt and deal with it. And, for me as a sprinter, of course I did a lot of really aggressive sprinting in practice. And sometimes if I did a little too much, I'd have to back off. And I also had trouble having extended periods of time where I could lift weights, which is important in sprinting. And now I know that all of that stemmed back to the fact that simply my hips were being forced this way just ever so slightly, and my shoulders along with it. And you put that pressure on a frame, and it's going to give every now and then. And so, plenty of people deal with a lot of physical ailments. I think mine was correctable. I actually have my shoes on my right foot are built up 3/8 of an inch, and I don't have any pain now. I wish I had known that then. Who knows what could have done differently.
Right. Describe and tell us the college recruiting process for you.
Sure. So back then, college coaches I don't think they were permitted to reach out to you until the summer before your senior year. And so for me, it was a process that was start and finish my senior year in high school. I don't know where I ranked nationally as a junior. I know by the end of my senior year, I was the second fastest 50 freestyler and the second fastest 100 freestyler, but to two different people. And so, it made me one of the, if not the top sprint recruit in the country. And I got a lot of attention from pretty much every school. And, Jeff might like this, that the fall of my senior year, I had University of Texas stuff all over my wall. That's emotionally, I was committed to swim for Eddie, to go to Texas. Eddie was, he was great to talk to. His assistant coach came out and watched my fall rest meet, and actually told me that it was my 200 freestyle, which wasn't special. I think I was a 140 flat or so in the 200 free, but it was, I guess some of the sprinters they were looking at couldn't swim a 200. And so it was the fact that I had a 200 at all that made them even more interested. And so, I was kind of on my way, and it seemed like an easy process. I took visits to Florida. Randy Reese was the coach in Florida, and Virginia, NC State. NC State was always on the list. I grew up an NC State fan. I grew up around the program. I swam meets at their pool. I knew a lot of the kids on the team. And the coach, while the coach hadn't been to the highest levels in recent years at the time, in the 70s, he had many Olympians. And so, he had been there before, and that was important to me. And then I got thrown the curveball that a lot of us get in life. And my father died in a car accident in November of my senior year. And that really changed my world. I lost motivation. And I also, the idea of straying far from home for school didn't sound as great as it did before. And so I continued through the process. I took my time. The coaches were really patient with me. Not one of them pressured me to make a decision. And I actually didn't commit to college until May of my senior year. So I whittled it down. It was really between NC State and Texas at the end. And I guess it was kind of always there. And I couldn't bring myself to leave home. I had seen while the team wasn't a highly ranked team at the time, the people that swam my events that were there got better every year. And I felt like, you know what, if their sprinters can get better, then I can get better there too. And it ended up being a great decision. I built lifelong friendships, swam with a great coach, and the path I went down worked out for me.
And I'm sure it also helped with the, being close to your family as all of you were still dealing with this hard time when you were a freshman, your freshman year, still dealing with the grief of losing your father. How did that affect your freshman year, not just in the pool, but, just trying to start this new chapter in your life?
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, any of us that have gone through the move from high school swimming to college swimming know that it's a big leap. Especially when you're on full scholarship. There are a lot of expectations on your back. The intensity goes up a notch, and my high school coach really backed off of me my senior year, and I had some practices where I got out in the middle of practice and she said, I can't do it. I lost that drive and desire that had fueled me for so long. And then you get to college, and and Coach Eastling, I love him, but he was a tough coach, and it was a shock to the system. I mean, he jumped on me day one, and my freshman year was hard. But I did have my mother was a 20-minute drive away. She and I would meet probably once a month, and we'd meet at this little ice cream shop and sit and have a banana split and catch up and talk. And I think that really helped. And just being around people that I had known before college instead of going somewhere where everything was brand new, it helped get me through. And after that first season of adjustment to college life and kind of moving through that period of time emotionally as a kid experiencing loss and grief, then things started to improve.
Well, I would say they really improved. I remember watching you win that 50 freestyle at the 93 NCAA championships, and that was your senior year, right?
Yes, senior year.
And, everybody in the building was kind of like, as you had said, NC State was kind of just not this team that everybody really talked about. And then all of a sudden they have an NCAA champion. At what point in your collegiate career did you start to believe that you could be the fastest 50 freestyler?
I think as early as my, I would say my sophomore year, but I had another, obstacle to overcome my sophomore year. Back to the imbalance in my hips and shoulders. I developed some real pain. I had a hard summer of lifting that was very successful. Didn't have issues before my sophomore year, and got a lot stronger. But then came back and early in the season developed some elbow pain that I do think was related to the hip and back and shoulder imbalance that we discussed earlier. And I ended up not swimming most of the fall dealing with that. And so I go to NC. I had a good conference meet, but with only a couple of months of training, 4 more weeks, and I just didn't perform at nationals. But the times I posted at ACCs that year, I think that was when I realized that I could win that meet and I could be one of the best college sprinters ever. And I just had to show up and actually do it, which unfortunately took all 4 years, but we got there.
You did. And at the time, that 1914 that you swam was one of the fastest times swum the 50 free by someone not named Tom Jager or Matt Biondi. So it was a very big deal. And it was the first time that NC State had won at the NCAA Swimming and Diving Championships in 17 years, a long time. And it's a 50 freestyle, and a lot of things have to work just right for that win to happen. So what did go right that day?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that went right is my training. My training went right all season. My senior year was the only year where I didn't have any injuries that caused me to take breaks, and more importantly, whatever Coach Easterling threw at me, even on the hardest day, I just handled. My fitness, my confidence, the power I was generating in the water, it was all, at the top of my game. And I felt invincible. I felt like there was no difficult set I could be given that I couldn't kind of dominate and master. And that just, you train like that all year, and it breeds a lot of confidence. And it also bred confidence in my coach, who put a lot of emphasis on our conference championships to let me not rest and shave for our conference meet. And so we backed off a few days for conference, and that was a different experience for me as well. It's and then when you get to the meet, I'm sure there were plenty of people there. In fact, I heard a couple of them who didn't know who I was talking about me, sitting in the bleachers next to me. There were a lot of people that would see my high seating and didn't think I was going to be a factor, and it just didn't faze me. I knew I was there to perform. I knew there'd be some tough competition, but it all kind of came together. I think during the race itself, my first 25 was fine, but if you ever see the film of it, Brian Kurza from UCLA and I turned identically, and it was really my turn that separated me from him that day. And when I think about my turn, at 6'4", I feel like I was able to get in and out of the wall like a little guy. And I really attribute that to, way back in my age group years where, we had a competitive age group team, and, good swimmers. We would race and battle every day in practice. And most of them were 200 freestylers, and I was a 50 freestyler. And so I was always laboring to keep up, and I would try to gain an advantage on every wall. And so I swam thousands and thousands of laps before that race, where I attacked my turn like my life depended on it. And I think those reps showed up that day for me. And I popped off the wall, half a body length ahead of Brian, and the race was over.
What would you say to someone who is in this exact position as you were as a college swimmer and want to achieve great things? Yeah,
that's a good question. I think you have to, you've got to be, I always thought I was committed, but only that last year was I truly all in. Everything I did all day long was about making myself better, to bed early, how I ate, those are things that, top swimmers are focused on more now for sure than they were, 25 years ago. But I took it to a higher level, and it just, when you can look back over a season and know that you couldn't have done anything to be better, it breeds so much confidence, and you can carry that confidence with you to the big stage.
And so you win NCAAs, and of course the next step for you after winning NCAAs is, the Olympics. But that's in '96, so it's 3 years away. But in between that, you did get to do some international competition. You got to go to World University Games and World Championships. What is that feeling like? If you could tell everybody what it's like to wear the USA cap and stand up on the blocks representing the USA, and also stand on the podium and have that national anthem playing for you.
You just gave me goosebumps, Jeff. There's nothing like it. And the first time that you experience it, the image that just came to mind was Ryan Held at the Olympic Games, bursting into tears on the podium that we all got to see and participate in, and with him. Just that raw emotion and pride. And I never took for granted putting the stars and stripes on my back, and what was expected of me, what I was representing. And it was just a great honor. And that World University Games meet in '93, that was my long course breakout meet. I had become a great short course swimmer, had never accomplished anything in a long course. And, you might agree with this. I still to this day look at the two as almost different sports. I mean, you really have to, they don't just translate easily. And, I attribute a lot of things, but I spent a summer in Fort Lauderdale swimming with Jack Nelson. We swam long course and did heavy volume twice a day. I think that helped quite a bit. And just the confidence that I carried forward from my college year really took me to a great place. And all of a sudden I went from kind of nobody to posting world ranked times in the 50-meter pool.
And so we're going to talk about the Olympics a little bit more here. So I'm sure a lot of times people introduce you as David Fox, Olympic gold medalist. And that gold medal was given to you as part of the 400 free relay because you got to swim in the qualifying heats.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you to be able to receive that gold medal?
Yeah, I mean, it's when I made the relay at the trials, at that point in time, I don't think we had ever lost that relay in international competition. And so it was almost a given that I was going to get a gold medal, certainly a given that I would medal unless we got disqualified or something like that. And as any of the rest of us would, I showed up to the Olympics wanting to swim my best and to earn the right to swim at night, maybe even swim so fast that I earned the right to swim on the medley relay, even though I was the 5th qualifier at the trials. And it just wasn't my summer. I really, if I look at my swimming career, my peaks were in 93 and 95. That's where those 2 years where I accomplished the majority of my swimming accolades. And 96 was tough. I was training in Colorado Springs with Jonty, and only I think 6 of us made the team that were training. Everyone else went home. All of a sudden my training partners were gone. There was John Olson and Mark Henderson, who I couldn't keep up with in practice. And then, Amy Van Dyken and Trip Schwank, who couldn't keep up with me in practice. And so I was swimming by myself, and it was hard. And I didn't have the best preparation. And it showed. I was just a little off, and that's all it takes at that level. And so I think in the prelims, I was within a 10th of, the 3rd or 4th guy to get selected for the relay. I also was one of the only ones to have another event later in the week, in the 50 free. And so, it was a judgment call to an extent, but I would have loved to have stood on that podium and experienced what we just talked about at the Olympic Games. But other than that, I recognize the contribution I made, the work that I did. I put my hand on the wall first in the preliminaries leading off the relay. And we got the USA to the place they needed to be for finals.
So as you talked about earlier, a lot of things you look back on are different. What does that gold medal mean for you now?
It's mostly to me, it's a tool to inspire, both kids who are in the pool, but also people out of the pool. It's people who haven't been involved in sports at a high level, I think naturally assume that there's just this God-given talent that takes people to that place. And obviously we don't get to a high level in anything without some gifts that are bestowed upon us. But, I have used it in the stories that kind of built my career to that place, to help people understand that whatever it is they want to achieve and they're trying to achieve, if they're willing to kind of back into those mundane habits on a daily basis and really kind of grind. And they're also, everyone's going to face adversity. We've all had our adversity to overcome. And if they're willing to lean in when those days show up, and you can't not let them discourage you. It's only human to be discouraged when you face some adversity, but figuring out how to power through them and to just adapt. And so that, to me, that's what it means. It's a tool to to make the people around me better at this point.
After the 96 Olympics, there was no talk about David Fox in swimming. Tell us what your life looked like for you after the Atlanta Olympics.
Yes, I moved on. It was starting to feel like work, and I was losing a little bit of the joy. I think some of that is because these physical issues that I was dealing with weren't going away. And I went back to business school at the University of North Carolina and completely detached from the sport of swimming, except one of the highlights of my life was Frank Comfort was kind enough to let me help coach a group of sprinters at the university while I was there for 3 years. And I got to coach a great group of kids, including my wife, who I didn't meet her there. She came with me to North Carolina, but it was just a lot of fun. The kids swam fast. I felt like I got to share my accumulated knowledge and my experience with all these great coaches in the past. And that was fun. But then once I left business school, I started a job at a entry level at Goldman Sachs. And, when you're kind of new kid on the block with no work experience at a firm like Goldman, there's not time for anything else. And so I fully embraced the fact that, I wasn't at the top of the mountain anymore, and I had a new mountain to climb, and I put my head down and put my work in. And only after a decade or more of success there did I start to feel longing to kind of be involved in the swimming community again, and have found a variety of ways since to get involved.
Were there any plans before going to Goldman Sachs to use your civil engineering degree?
Yes. I was always a planner. I always had a path I thought I was marching down. And like most of us, I never marched down those paths. I studied civil engineering very purposely. I went to North Carolina for my MBA very purposely. They have a phenomenal real estate development curriculum within their MBA program. And that's what I focused on. And my plan was to move back to my hometown of Raleigh and work for a real estate developer and kind of go down that path and see where it led. But while in business school, as many do, I paid attention to all the companies visiting campus and was really drawn to the people I met from Goldman Sachs.
And what do you do now at Goldman Sachs?
I run the Southwest private wealth management business. So I oversee people in Dallas and in Houston who work with our high net worth families, our institutions, foundations, endowments, managing money. We oversee about $40 billion in assets in my region. I've been doing that for about 4.5 years. Prior to that, I ran our Atlanta operations for 10 years. And then I started my career in Philadelphia, kind of on the ground floor.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility.
It is. It's a when I reflect back on swimming, I feel like I've led 2 completely separate different lives. It's been a 21-year journey here that I have to remind myself that I had this life before starting to work.
Yeah. What causes more anxiety, swimming in a big international final like at the Olympics, or trying to secure a multi-million-dollar investment client?
That's a great question. I'd say the swimming, but part of it was because I was, younger and less experienced in life in general. And I think one of the things that's led to my success is in the professional world is I try not to let, there's this great Matt Biondi quote from decades ago that I obsessed about when I was a kid, and I still think about. And he said, to be great in swimming, he needed to never let his emotions get him too high, never get overconfident, never, let the good times make him feel too proud of himself, and also never let the lows be too low, and just trying to keep that even keeled nature. And even among our biggest business opportunities, I recognize that all I can do is prepare and deliver our best advice to a client. And then whatever is going to be is going to be. And, a single situation is not going to make or break a career. And so I think I'm able to take balance into situations, maybe more so than others can.
Absolutely. I can't imagine how you would have been more prepared for this job at Goldman Sachs if it were not for having such a successful swimming career.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, David, it's been so great catching up with you and learning a little bit more about your life. And congratulations on everything that's been going on in your life, especially now. And thank you for everything you've done and continue to do for the sport of swimming. And thank you for being part of the show today.
You bet. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Sure. And just like we've heard from David, as I always say, it's not just about the destination, it's also about the journey.